Hey, what's going on to all my Generation fans out there, and welcome back to my channel, Movie Files. Elliot back again with my weekly recap, breakdown, and review of the first 3 episodes of Part 2 of Generation, which is available today on HBO Max. So excited to be back in this world. I really enjoyed this first part, and I'm excited to see what Part 2 has up its sleeve. We're going to break it all down here in this review, but before we do so, make sure you're following me on all my other social media accounts. If you're new to the channel, welcome to the community. Consider subscribing and hitting that notification bell. That way you can get the alert from when I drop new content. If you enjoyed this review, it would mean a lot to me if you can give it a thumbs up, as well as share the video. It helps out the channel a lot, but also appreciate the support. And in the comments for all my Generation fans out there, let's talk about these first 3 episodes. What did you like? What didn't you like? Are you excited to be back? What do you hope to see in this part 2? And let me know some of your favorite moments of these first 3 episodes. Let's discuss it all in the comments below. So I reviewed the first part on this channel, all 8 episodes. You can check it out, but just long story short, I really enjoyed the first part. This show is kind of scratching that Euphoria itch. I love Euphoria. If you all don't know, I reviewed the first season. I reviewed the special episodes we got last year and one that we got at the top of this year. Big fan of Euphoria. Generation isn't Euphoria. It doesn't have the same acting, the story, the cinematography, the score, but it's still a show that I really enjoy in regards to it's a more of a dramedy. It has dramatic elements, but it has a little bit more comedy than Euphoria. It has that coming of age vibes to the show like Euphoria has. So it's definitely a show that I really enjoy about these teenagers, this generation that I'm obviously much older than, but seeing them kind of confronting themselves, self-discovery, figuring out who they are as people, figuring out their sexuality, and all the different themes that we got in the first part. So I'm a big fan of this show, and I really enjoy these characters. So here we are discussing part 2 in the first 3 episodes. So this will be a spoiler discussion. I assume if you're watching this video, you've seen the first part and you've seen the first 3 episodes of part 2. So we're going to dive deep into it, starting off with episode 9, titled Deepfake. Now, this was a really good way to get us back into this world, catching up to these characters that I really enjoy, starting off with the lead of the show, Chester, who is meeting Bo for the very first time. And listen, this was a very awkward date. We meet Bo for the first time. We know that Chester really is into Bo with the exchange they had in the finale, or I should say the part 1 finale, him texting him and getting excited for meeting him. So now they're meeting each other, and again, awkward date, a date that you will never forget, right? We see Bo immediately accidentally hits Chester in his chin by lifting his head up. We see that they have this conversation about how Chester was stalking him online. We see, awkward conversation about Bitcoin. Again, just a lot of awkwardness going on. They're very nervous to meet each other for the first time. It's very apparent in this meeting. We go from awkward to just really weird things happening. The cowboy telling them, hey, I like Brokeback Mountain. The little girl talking about, hey, are you guys going to be rubbing body parts later tonight? And then ultimately one of the kids just throws up on the floor, which causes Chester to fall on it. So again, if things work out between Bo and Chester, this is a first story or first date that you can never forget. A great way to open up the episode. But in Generation fashion, we go back 12 hours earlier in the day, and we run into my favorite character of part 1 and my favorite character of the show, and that is Riley. She's just such an interesting character. She reminds me of Lady Bird. If you guys saw that movie with Saoirse Ronan, she's a character who's hardened on the outside but soft on the inside, and she has a lot to do in these first 3 episodes, and I'm loving that the show is kind of focusing on all of these characters. But again, I'm a Riley fan, so I love that we kind of catch up with her. We get this dynamic that we've never seen in part 1, which is, obviously Sam is a guidance counselor, but he's having a conversation with Riley in regards to her skipping class and her kind of being in this kind of bad mood, and she's in trouble because of the art piece that she has. And again, it's just one of the things I love about her, just her perspective on certain things and kind of switching the norms and making people feel uncomfortable about something that shouldn't be uncomfortable, which is sexuality. So I'm a big fan of that character. But again, just seeing them having a conversation was interesting because we don't get a lot from Sam in the first 3 episodes, and I'm assuming the show has kind of left that weird storyline that I was not all that interested in between Sam and Chester, again, the age difference, teacher, and all that stuff. So I'm glad that the show is not shining a light on that, but at the same time, I wonder what Sam's purpose is going to be in this part, besides being a guidance counselor. Only time will tell, but we see that Riley is still in a weird space with Greta and vice versa. We see that Chester is contemplating should he go to this party, this X-Files party that the best on television is hosting, Anna, and we see again Greta is just like, I don't know if I want to say Riley doesn't know if she should go because obviously Greta's going to be there, but this was a very interesting moment in regards to just getting an understanding of what a day-to-day life looks like for Riley as she's telling Chester that her mom is going through a midlife crisis. She's obviously going through this divorce with her dad, and he's dating this younger girl, and her mom, with this midlife crisis, is reverting back to her being a little girl, has like this little playroom that she can go to, and unfortunately her mom is in the room while she's telling Chester this. Again, awkward moments in this episode, but again, you just get an idea of the dynamic that Riley goes through from her home life to her school life. She has a lot on her plate. Again, my favorite character, and I love that this first episode is kind of shining a light on her. But speaking of shining a light, we get the rest of the crew here. We go to Anna's party, the X-Files party, which I'm a fan of X-Files, so again, this gives me more reason to love this character. But we see within this moment that Greta's mom has yet to come back home, which we'll talk about her in episode 3. But this is where the whole crew comes over to the party, and as they're kind of watching this X-Files episode, we catch up to Delilah. And in Delilah's kind of like solo moment, we see that she's still kind of in her mindset where she's, you know, still recovering from letting her firstborn child go away in the last season's finale, or say part 1 finale. We see that she's trying to open up and try to begin this new chapter in her life. As we catch up with her, and Naomi and Ariana are still really good friends. They exchange gifts for one another. They're really like best of friends now, and there seems to be a little storyline that we're going to be looking forward to in this season, or this part, where Cooper may or may not cause some conflict between Naomi and Delilah, because they both like him, and we'll obviously talk about him in the next episode. But we cut to catching up with Megan, who is trying to discover why Nathan is bisexual by inviting the pastor over. And again, we see Naomi being the fun sister, helping him out in that situation as he's saying that he has a boyfriend, which brings us back to Chester. We tie all the way back to the front of the episode, where we go to the skating ring, and randomly we see Bo throws up, and he comes up with this excuse that he has to leave the date because his mom has a presentation in the morning and she needs his help. So I took that scene as not that Bo wasn't interested in Chester, it was just an awkward date. From the kid comment to the the Bitcoin conversation to the throwing up, it was just, let's hit the reset button. So I took that as him like, let me reset and maybe reschedule this date, as we know later on in episode 3, to get things back going. So obviously Chester didn't think of that. He thinks that, oh, he's not into me. This is not going well. There seems to be some disconnect between how Chester is more openly gay and how Bo seems to be a little bit more reserved. So obviously Chester's like, wow, I was so into this guy and things turned out to be horrible. As we kind of wrap up the episode, it's nice to see how the crew is now there for one another. As we saw, Chester was kind of a loner in season or part 1, but now he has the crew to go to. As he has his bad date, he goes over to the X-Files party. He has a conversation with Nathan. They talk about the voicemail that was left there, and I like that the show is just, which I think they're going to ultimately end up together, but Chester tells Nathan, I don't think we're going to end up like this. I don't look at you that way. I just look at you as a friend, but hey, I've seen enough TV shows to know that they're going to eventually cross paths probably by the end of this part. I think we'll see what happens with Bo, but I think that Nathan and Chester will probably end up being together. We'll see. But again, that's kind of the recap of the 9th episode, which I really enjoyed. Again, being back with these characters was a lot of fun. But I think for me, episode 10 and episode 11 was the best episodes out of the 3 that we got. And particularly, I think episode 2 is probably my favorite out of the 3, but 3, or let's just say the episode 12, is kind of up there. But nonetheless, let's talk about this 10th episode titled Built for Pleasure, as it's essentially following 3 different dates. We have Chester and Bo going on round 2. We have Greta and Riley's hookup going on, kind of seeing what they're going to get into. And then we get Cooper and Delilah. So as we see in this episode, we see Nathan wants to have this plan to pretend that Chester is his boyfriend, as, by the way, I forgot to mention in the previous episode that they make out in front of Megan, which obviously upsets her. But nonetheless, they're going with this whole plan that Chester's going to pretend to be Nathan's boyfriend just to kind of shake things up as he asks him, hey, how am I as a kisser, as he gives him a review on his kissing skills. But nonetheless, we learn that this was the first time that Chester has been on the actual date, which again meant so much to him that it didn't turn out well. But hey, you always get second chances, as we see later in this episode. But there wasn't a ton of stuff going on for like the first 10-15 minutes until we get things kind of really picking up, which we learned that I believe her name is Louisa, if I'm not mistaken. I can't remember the character's name, but essentially the girl that hooked up with Riley in the hotel the first part. We see that she knew Greta from when they were kids, and they kind of hit it off at the skating ring, or I should say skateboarding, and they have a thing going. But at the same time, we see that Chester and Nathan are hanging out, and Nathan accidentally sends like a let's go on another date text pretending to be Chester to Bo, hits the send button. Obviously, Chester's upset. He tells Nathan in kind of a mean way that you mess up everything. That upsets Nathan. He gets out of the car, but surprisingly, Bo says, yeah, I'm down. Let's do a round 2. But obviously, Chester at this point doesn't realize that he kind of upset Nathan, and Nathan goes and storms into the house, which again, I'm thinking about in this part that they will end up a couple, but we'll see. But nonetheless, we see that we cut to in between all the different dates. Chester and Bo have a better second date with trying to go to the movie theater, but they end up going to get snacks, and they come across this sex novel, which is kind of the thesis of this episode in regards to discovering who you are and giving people second chances. So he's reading that to them, and they end up, having this kind of intimate moment in the car. Nothing sexual, but they just kind of embrace each other for the first time, acknowledging that they do care for one another and that they are going to be a couple, as we'll see in the next episode. We cut from that to Greta and Louisa, as Louisa tries to make her move, but Greta says she denies her a kiss because she wants to get to know her more. But it's just interesting to see that dynamic, and that she hasn't told her that she hooked up with Riley in the last part's finale. So that'll be interesting to see how that plays out. But the funniest moment, I mentioned we have 3 dates. Delilah invites Cooper over, which Riley's over at the same time. They're having like this family day or whatever, playing Monopoly. And Cooper tries to make a move, tries to go in for a kiss, but Delilah shuts the door on him, which I thought was hilarious. But to me, I'm thinking that she did that because she just, again, gave up her kid. She had her first child. She's keeping a secret to her parents, which seem to be really good parents. And her whole family dynamic seems to be pretty, welcoming. And they seem to be open to just life and love and all that stuff. So obviously she just probably doesn't want to get into another relationship right away, as well as she probably doesn't want to hurt her best friend's feelings and Naomi. So it's really interesting to see that dynamic. But again, I thought this was a really great episode as we wrap up with Greta going home and her mom is officially home, which brings us into Absolute Zero, which is the title of episode 11, which I love that, again, focuses on my favorite character, as Riley she wants to be absolute zero, but she's trying to get her mind off of not having anyone to love, as everyone is finding love in this particular part. She tries to get a job, she tries to get back her grades and all that stuff, which we'll talk about her at the end. But as we kind of cut in between Riley figuring things out, we see that Bo and Chester are now officially a thing. Chester invites Bo over to his house, meets his nana, shares a really cool story, a really intimate story about his experience with his mom and a life lesson that she gave him. And then they ultimately do have this moment where they do embrace each other. So again, interesting to see Bo and Chester. It's all love and dove, but again, I think that Chester and Nathan will be a couple by the end of this part. But cut to that to seeing Greta, which was really interesting. Greta invites her friends over to meet her mom, who's back home, for the first time, and she invites Louisa, because Louisa is just like, hey man, I don't want to play the whole closeted lesbian thing. If you're into me, if you're not, let's just figure it out. But she says, yes, I want to invite you over to get to know you more. But then indirectly, we see that, again, Anna is so great. She helps Riley figure things out and getting her this job, but then Riley wants to come over to the house to give her flowers. So a very awkward situation, but a really interesting situation, because we see a lot of stuff happening in this kind of get to know Greta's friends party, where we see Greta's mom, who we know to be kind of stuck in her ways. She's finally kind of letting loose, having fun. They're dancing, having a good time, but then ultimately, things kind of don't work out for everyone in the situation, which unfortunately the person that gets the short end of the stick is Riley in this episode, as we see Greta and Lucia getting ice cream, and Lucia's like, okay, bye, have a good night, Riley, thank you, no thank you, trying to make her move or whatnot. But we see Anna again being a great person, has this kind of one-on-one conversation with Riley regarding, hey, if you need somewhere to stay, if you need a safe haven, there's a room for you, because I had that as a kid. So again, I love Anna, I love Riley, more of them please, because they're two great characters, and I think they fit so well together. I love their chemistry on screen as well. I think they're easily my favorite actors and favorite characters in the show. But as we wrap up the episode, again, things don't end well for Riley as she see Lucia and Greta going in for a kiss. They don't ultimately kiss, but obviously in the POV of Riley, it seems that they are now embracing each other, and they might be a couple, as we end the episode with Riley crushing that frozen rose, which ties back to this episode, Absolute Zero. So really good episodes. Again, I think the episode, the pilot or the new part premiere was a good way to get us back into this world with these fun characters. But then episode 10 and 11 really kind of show you what the season might look like. Chester and Bo, Nathan love triangle. We have obviously Greta, Riley, and Lucia. We have things to figure out with Naomi and Cooper and Delilah. So there's a lot of love triangles going on with this season, as well as all the other characters, what's going to go on with Sam and Megan, and obviously other characters that we have in the show. So hey, if you guys want me to cover this like I did for part 1 on a week-to-week basis, let me know in the comments by liking the video, sharing the video, and having a good conversation in the comments. But again, let me know what you thought of these first 3 episodes. Are you excited for the rest of this part 2? Let's discuss in the comments. As always, thank you all for sticking around to the end of this video. Make sure to like, share, leave your thoughts in the comments, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, hit the bell, that way you don't miss any of my other content. Hope you all are enjoying your day. We'll see you on the next video.